Hey guys and girls, King Racer here. Today's a very special day for the channel. A lot of people in the past years, and even since the beginning of my YouTube channel, ask me, "Hey King Racer, how did you build that really nice cities of yours? How did you make the buildings? Where the heck did it came from? It's so beautiful. How much time and effort did you spend on it, building it?" Well, today is the day I will answer these questions with the most accuracy I can. And to do this exercise, I will invite you to come spend some time with me inside the time machine of the old duck, the old DeLorean. We're taking way back when I was a kid, back in the early 2000s. Alright, so let's roll. We are in 2004. I am 6 years old, just entering elementary school in first year. As a kid, I had a lot of cool projects in mind. I love science, history, and of course cars. Just like today, 20 years later. Like every guy of my young age, I was living my life at very high speed, in the highway to hell. I was enjoying learning, playing, and of course thinking. Time passes on really quickly. And then in 2005, a new element came to my life, the infamous video game world. I worked at high school and outside of it for a very long year, getting the best result possible at my exams, to be able to go in second year, but also for another objective, is getting my first ever video game console, which in my case was a PlayStation 2. And I did great. Not only I impressed my parents, but also my teacher. So I got the precious trophy at the end of the school year. The cards were played. The first game I remember buying after purchasing the console was of course the Need for Speed games, Most Wanted, and not long after, Hot Pursuit 2. Oh dear, what a load of nostalgia. Most Wanted games was a major success back in the days, not only for me, but also to the eyes of my friends. In fact, I liked it better than the sequel that came later in 2008, which was Need for Speed Carbon. At that very moment, the power was plugged into the input, just like an AC/DC song, and my fantasies came to a certain reality. I was on a rock and roll train. Not long after getting the games and my PlayStation 2, I was starting to think that video games were more interesting to my eyes than my good old DIECAST car collection. I enjoyed playing Need for Speed games for hours after school, after of course doing my homeworks and my lectures. I remember in particular the wild police chase across Rockport City, the fictional town of Most Wanted, and the canyon battles in Carbon, with the bosses and also other opponents. The large highways, the destructible structures and buildings, and the level of detail of the environment of the city was impressive. At some point, I was really addicted to the games, and this is where things changed a bit. My school notes started to collapse. It was not good at all. So my parent takes actions. I had to take away the games, and get my focus back on what was more important, the studies of course, and there's no argument against it anyway. So after a few months of damage control and a change of my behaviors towards schools, I entered into the more control game time, if I can call this so. And it did well for my conscience. And this is where I go back playing with my toys and my Hot Wheel cars. I was playing with my cars, and I kind of recreate the scenes that I lived when I was playing the video games. I was imagining being chased by cops at very high speed on the highway and hitting a poles or a pursuit breaker and destroying them. And then I remember driving a Lamborghini at very high speed in a race and in downtown area and making some drift on a tight corner. And this is where new ideas can start blowing through my mind like a popcorn. And the first stage of the construction of the town has been started at that very moment. The car would plays once again. During the summer vacation of 2008, I was hyped about getting this town built. In fact, so excited and thrilled that I actually started the work maybe too fast. And also very, how can I say that, rubbish. I started building the downtown area and the cities with the means at ends. Popsicle sticks, construction blocks, different pieces of plastic, recycled wood, and hot glue. I remember a ton of hot glue, and it was a total mess, really. I burned myself multiple times with a gun, I accidentally dropped buildings on the floor, I smashed frequently, newly assembled props by accident, I even walked into cars and nearly flipped. Did I even mention the messing with those little ball of acrylic paint? Oh well. So, the first day of the town were not the best ones, you can tell. But the main point was getting this thing done for me. So, it kinda works here. After a few days, I made my first version of the town, which you can see now on the screen. Sorry for the bad images quality, it was from a very long time ago and it was an old camera and it's very far from the 21st century, you know. So I took the best one I have in my archives. As you can tell, the main idea was there. I put together some props, I installed a freshly new built police station for the chases, of course. I put some traffic cars into the streets. I created a large highway. It was a win for me. I still had a project in mind, like making those famous pursuit breakers that you see in Need for Speed games, as later on. And I remember the very first one being the large interstate style on the highways, and also the gas stations, and some other, like what is the donut store with the giant donut that can fall on the cop's car. Anyway, and for the buildings, my favorite one that I built with my grandfather actually was the hotel. I think it was probably the best building I have in this town back in the day. And then at the end of the year, my aunt came back from a trip to New York City and she brings me a very nice replica of the Empire State Buildings and also the Statue of Liberty. And I was so excited to add that to the town, which was like the masterpiece of the town back then. Well, at least before I start building very unique structures myself. And let me explain that. During the spring of 2006, we had a program at school that allows a kid to choose a special activity or specialty they would like to work on during the afternoon of school. It could have been sports, science, history, religions, or other stuff. In my case, I chose a cabinet marking program for kids that teach you how to build, repair, paint, and improve wood objects. And in the program, I chose to build a detailed garage for my toy cars the first year. And for the second year, I go ahead and build a fully detailed bridge for my miniature town. I was kind of a bit skeptical at the first for the kind of bridge I wanted to build during that year, but I finally decided to go with the train style bridge. I worked hard and it pays off. I was so proud of my work, and the buildings and bridge were indeed relocated. In 2009, the first canyon route was built by the help of my father. This was another step of my project, making an ambitious canyon road inspired by the one seen in the Need for Speed Carbon games. To make the road, I remember we used a very flexible material similar to tile that was used, as well as squares and small 2x4 wood pieces for the stands, of course. Some plywood parts were also created to build some areas like a forest guard headquarters, a sheriff station, a leisure station, and some wood areas. Also, the cities received a few modifications, like the add-on of a wind farm near the highway, and a very small borough connected with a bridge going through the canyon mountains. The city kept this configuration for several years, until major improvements were made back in 2013. And again, let me explain. In 2006, the city was built in a way because the space was very limited for me. The area was actually the playroom that I split with my sister back then. We were kids after all, you know? So everyone deserves his private space to avoid conflicts and have a great time. But in 2013, things changes. I got the entire room for myself, since she decided to move on an apartment with her boyfriend. I actually felt like the Monopoly guy for some reason that day, having the feeling that you got possession of a giant property for yourself and didn't have to pay much for it. It was kind of a great feeling. But also, great news for the town, of course. The expansion was evident and in progress. I didn't waste any time starting the work. So in the summer vacation, my father and I were back in business. With an expansion for the canyon roads and a new table to create a large district for the downtown area. Plus, we built 2 other separate areas, making things possible to add more boroughs. Also, I made some improvement to the city, like adding an airport, an underground parking lot, an industrial area, and of course a tunnel to connect the parking area and the industrial area. During the construction, the downtown areas received some new building also, including a freshly built hospital, a couple of skyscrapers, a new fire station, and some new smaller buildings like stores and a bank. 2 new bridges were also rebuilt to connect the new boroughs to the downtown areas. The city then stayed like that for several years, unchanged. Despite all the new additions to the town, there were still some elements lacking in the diorama, which I figured out later, like the absence of realism in the building textures, very few props around, and the most annoying one for me is the configuration of the streets. They were way too small. I still can't believe to this day I made those roads so tight in all the districts. Even a smart car will have a hard time passing there, you know what I mean? So, once again, I had to go back to the drawing board to make some major changes, and for the best this time. In 2016, SpeedCity went to a new state of life. New buildings were added and retextured. The city junkyard was born, as well as a prison yard. The big garage that used to take a lot of space in the room was dismantled and completely rebuilt. This new garage was better scale for my 1/64 scale cars and more accurate to the city environment. In 2017, December to be precise, the canyon roads were completely repaved with brand new black asphalt, taking away the brown look, old school look of the roads, making them better to look at. Sadly, also, some areas were sacrificed due to lack of space and the growth of my diecast car collection. The airport being the biggest area dismantled since the beginning of the history of the city. Some boroughs were also reformatted to make it more ergonomic to film stop-motion videos, it making it easier for sensitive spot of filming and taking pictures of. In 2019, downtown SpeedCity got its entire skyscrapers retextured, giving her a brand new, younger, and more realistic look. The two original bridges, connecting the 2 boroughs were also demolished and replaced by improved ones. A new fire station was also built for the downtown areas, and another one appeared in 2020 for the industrial zone. In January 2022, SpeedCity industrial area was completely changed with new structures being added and most roads being changed. The skyscrapers also started growing in the smaller residential area to the north of the town, making the city more populated than ever before. So how do I make the buildings? Well, the question is simple. I primarily use construction blocks, the good old Legos, but without the name. I use all type of scale of Legos. Why? Simply because the construction blocks are very common, they are simple to use, they are very ergonomic, and you can pretty much build any kind of form or shape you want with them. Also, they are very forgivable if you commit mistakes during the construction of the buildings. You can't say the same with other methods like pre-assembled kits made of hard plastic or metal sheet. You might gonna get better result with those, but if you messed up or if you break something, you're pretty much screwed, unless you have spare parts. I do use them in my diorama though. It's just not the main material I use. And after building the skyscrapers, I go on website like texture.com and I pick up several building textures for the structures. I only use the best pixelized images to have the best quality render on the printer and also on the buildings. If I have to, I can also use Photoshop to improve the images. Finally, I apply them to the block after printing them with a bit of glue or transparent tape. And then, bam! You got yourself some very nice and realistic buildings for dioramas. For bridges special structures, wood give the best result. It can be popsicle sticks or it can be any kind of wood that can be easily manipulable, and it works. For houses, small commercial buildings or businesses, the cheap ones available during the Christmas holidays at your local big store will do just fine. You can also look for old playsets made by companies such as Tomica, Matchbox, or Majorette. They can be pretty cool to add to the diorama, and in certain cases acceptable to the environment of the city scenes. Another great idea is to look for train diorama buildings, like the ones that Walter's Constone sells. Some people are gonna say they are not cheap, but the trick is, if you can find them at a thrift shop store, a flea market, or in a used toy store shop for a bargain price, they are pretty nice buildings, and they are great additions to the diorama. But you gotta watch out for the scales. Make sure they are fitting and accurate with your city scenes. Assembling city props can be a challenge to create them by yourself. There are some options for you if you don't want to make them. Companies like Real Toy, GREENLIGHT, American Diorama, or Tomica sells kits for you to buy. You can pretty much get everything you want with these. Gas pumps, garbage can, containers, park bench, pedestrians, street lamps, road sign, garage tool, tires for cars, water castle, fire hydrant, fence, crate, and much more. Me, I find most of my props at thrift shop stores like Value Village, or in hobby shops, or even, sometimes, in used toy store. For the purse breakers, like the one I use in my stop motion videos, I use my imaginations to make them, using mostly popsicle sticks or soft plastic. And of course, these are built and inspired by Need for Speed games, like Most Wanted and Undercover, primarily. I use construction blocks for a more complex one, like industrial bridges or a brick wall. Like I said before, the town were mostly built inspired by old Need for Speed games. I basically pick up the best elements of every game in the 2000 periods. For the city, I mainly base SpeedCity on Rockport for the boroughs, the downtown, and the city areas. For the canyon roads, I go with the one features in Palmont City from Need for Speed Carbon. And for the large boulevard, bridge, and highways, Tree City Bay from Need for Speed Undercover was the deal. But I also added my personal touch of the city, like recreating the bridge of Quebec City, my own town. I also took elements of another type of video games that I really enjoy playing. City builders like SimCity, Cities XL, and Cities Skyline, to make a few. I am also planning to add more unique structures to the city and more boroughs in the future. A stadium, rebuilding the airport, a train station, a shipyard, a massive industrial area, a power plant, and add more highways to make a complete interstate network, to make a few projects that I have in mind. Brief, SpeedCity have a beautiful future coming. To resume this video, my diorama was mainly created by my imagination and my nostalgia of playing the good old Need for Speed games. In brief, it's a mix of everything and nothing. The imposing highways of Tree City, the canyon road of Palmont City, and the boroughs of Rockport, combined with some element of the real world. Speed City was not built in one day, just like Roma. When you do dioramas, you make mistakes, but you also learn from them. And you can use them to improve your dioramas and your city scenes. What will make your diorama unique will be the love and finesse you want to invest in it. Some people spend hours in their basement looking at their diecast collection, looking at their amount of super treasure hunt they got, or their GM cars, their muscle cars, or chases, or trucks, or whatever. But others, like me, they do really enjoy looking at their diecast collections. But they also want that little extra, you know? They want the little bonus that will make the little difference. They enjoy collecting diecast cars, but they also want to invest time on something else and spend it maybe their creativity on a different project. And making a miniature city with accurate details to the real world, making a piece of art that will actually improve your diecast collection. It will also give you the opportunity to display your models and to enjoy your collection even more, taking nice pictures, for example, or making stop motion videos in my case. It's very cool to collect diecast models and getting rare pieces along your way during your collector's life. It's exciting. But if you had the choice, would you rather have the best diecast collection in the world, but all stuck in plastic and cardboard, and have no diorama to take pictures of the model or actually enjoy them, having them in your hand? Or you would rather have a more modest collection, but have the best of the two worlds, having a collection of diecast cars, which is cool, but also having a fantastic second hobby to complete it. For me, the second option was the way to go. And if I have the choice to go back in time and decide what I want to do, I will do it exactly the way I did it. But you, what will be your choice? If you jump in my shoes, until where will you be ready to go? What decision will you take? What kind of city would you build? Something sure, in this hobby, the possibilities are infinite and beyond.